Warren Buffett is not a stupid man, nor is he a careless man. That's how one is described when one's net worth is upwards of $60 billion. When he speaks, people listen, markets can change in seconds. So when he reached out this weekend to his investors and termed as dead wrong all the economic pessimism surrounding the 2016 presidential campaign, you can imagine how it raised more than a few eyebrows and got people talking. So let's assume for a moment, yes, we all know what that word means, that Warren Buffett's onto something. What does he know that others don't? Break open the wallet. Let's air this one out. He is the former denizen of Wall Street, veteran economist, and author of The American Dream Under Fire, Steve Beaman, joined by the syndicated columnist, veteran economist, and professor of business at the University of Maryland, Peter Morici. Gentlemen, let's get to work and get right to what Warren Buffett said in his annual letter to shareholders this weekend. He wrote, in part, Americans now believe that their children will not live as well as they themselves do. That view is dead wrong. The babies being born in America today are the luckiest crop in history. Steve Beaman, well, who are we supposed to believe? Warren Buffett should know exactly what he's talking about here. Or, oh, wait just a minute. He happens to be a supporter of Hillary Clinton. Oh, well, maybe we need to bring that into the mix. Go ahead, Steve.
Well, and let's not forget he was a supporter of Barack Obama, so he's going to certainly stand for those policies. I don't think in every way he's wrong. I think productivity and technology are changing rapidly and improving the quality of life. I do think he's missing something, though, and that is if you look at small business development in the United States, we're now, I think it's 12th in the world for forming small businesses. That is not the recipe for economic growth like we've had in our past 230 years. Yes, for the big business environment like, Buffett, where he can buy politicians and trade off these zero interest rates, he's going to do fine. But when it comes to mom and pop who want to start their own company or start their new technology company, regulation after regulation after regulation are stifling that kind of growth.
Peter, what Steve said right there caught me. When it comes down to mom and pop, the people there who can't just go out and buy companies with billions of dollars, is that the difference here where Warren just might be talking up both sides of his mouth here?
Well, it's part of it. There's no doubt that the American innovation machine is alive and well. In Britain, innovation continued long after the decline set in. However, the question is who will benefit from those innovations, the Chinese or the Americans? After all, who makes the iPhone? It's not Americans. Over and over again, we're seeing this happen. Also, look outside. Young people can't afford to buy homes. They're mired in debt. Essentially, the older folks have all the wealth in America, and it's not transferring down the ladder the way it did in past generations. Instead, young people are staying with their parents longer. They can't take care of themselves. So he's got to square that innovation machine with the objective conditions of young folks. That's why Bernie's so popular, but he's blinded to that because he has to be right. He has to have Hillary win. This is different than a stock pick. When he picks wrong on a stock, the market tells him. When he picks wrong on a politician, people suffer, but it's not Mr. Buffett.
Peter, you made me think of something here. You mentioned iPhone. iPhones, of course, made in China. That's just about everything is these days, or at least a lot of phones are made in China. A lot of our electronics comes from China. And then we have a leading GOP candidate right now who has some trade policies that people say can't work, won't work. He's basically just blowing smoke at this point. In your opinion, what's the implication if Donald Trump does indeed become president on our trade policies with people like China and others where he says, I'll get him to do whatever I want, hell or high water?
You're asking me, Ed?
No, I'm asking Peter.
Got it.
The biggest implication of Trump winning is the establishment losing. You have to understand that Jeb Bush and Hillary Clinton have a lot invested in the status quo, and that is these trade agreements. The Bush family has become insanely wealthy by virtue of having the presidency, even as the fortunes of ordinary Americans have declined. My feeling is these policies can work. I would point out this. What he is advocating regarding China, I have advocated for the last 10 years, and so has liberal economist and New York Times columnist Paul Krugman. There's a lot of people on the right and left that are saying it's time to take out the baseball bat, put the rusty nail at the end, and go after them and make them change.
All of a sudden, Peter, you're making me think about my growing up in New York City streets 100 years ago. Just the last couple of words of it.
I was raised in Queens.
I was raised in the village. We know all about what it's like here. Steve, all right, now, you waited on this, your side of this.
Well, I think one of the issues is we're looking at 20th century economics and a 21st century economy. The technology revolution that we are undergoing right now is changing all of this. Yes, presently products are manufactured in China, but I think you're going to see a transition in that over the next 20 years where that manufacturing comes back to its local distribution point, although it's run with robotics. So I'm not sure bringing those jobs back is it's a simplistic solution, but I think that's where Trump's headed. With regard to, treating China fairly, there's no question they have gotten the upper hand in trade negotiations for 20, 30 years with us. And I think we need to step up and get the currencies under control and get China out of this play park where they're winning the game because we failed to negotiate.
30 seconds to both of you here. Business Insider talks about financial markets and economic data telling two different stories. One suggests an economy on the verge of recession. Another solid, albeit slow growth with signs activity is about to completely roll over. 30 seconds to you first, Steve. Which one do you agree with?
Well, it goes back to what you and I've talked about for 2 years on this program. We have a bipolar economy. On one hand, it's trying to grow. On the other hand, there's so much structural damage, it's not seeing the growth. I think we're stuck in this malaise of 2.5-ish type growth rates for a long time. The Fed can't do much more. They're trying with zero interest, now negative interest. The fact of the matter is we need to get this economy unregulated to let it loose.
Peter, 30 seconds to you. They say we stand by our original thesis. Something's got to give.
Well, financial markets are following the price of oil. And for some strange reason, financial markets, that is the people on Wall Street, seem to think that if the price of oil is low, it's bad for America. That's simply not the case. We're still a major importer. And sooner or later, Wall Street will come to its senses. Whether Wall Street should be pessimistic is by the progress of the economy. And so far, Mr. Beaman is right. We're stuck at this 2.5% growth rate. That's certainly not the end of the world. It is not a recession, and the market should simply forget about the price of oil.
Steve Beaman, Peter Morici, thanks for joining us. And oh yeah, Peter, like I said, thanks for giving me that thought process back to my days growing up in New York City. Gentlemen, thank you very much. What would you do if somebody asked you about support from the Ku Klux Klan? Better asked, what would you expect your candidate for president to say? That's coming up next in Telling It Like It Is here on The Hard Line.